Hello, everybody. My name is Trevor with the Dynamic Lending team, and I'm here today with Jenny, who is my go-to insurance agent, and we're going to ask her a few questions, and let's just get started. Can you introduce yourself for us, Jenny?
Yeah, so I am Jenny. I own Goosehead Insurance. It's an insurance franchise. Have been doing insurance for about 7.5 years at this point, and kind of decided to take a little bit of a leap of faith. So now I have my own company and work with about 20 different carriers. Not that all of them are open, but have a lot of flexibility for the most part.
Awesome. Jenny takes care of a lot of my clients, so if you decide to get a loan with me, you'll probably at least get a quote from her. Today we're going to be asking Jenny a few different questions that I think would be relevant for people who are buying a home and people who are homeowners already. We definitely run into homeowners insurance every day in the mortgage industry, so it's a pretty good synergy and tie-in with the topics that I talk about. So first question for you, what the heck is going on with homeowners insurance in Florida right now? It's been crazy, policies getting dropped, premiums going up. So what's going on?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question. So here in the state of Florida, we actually have a lot of fraudulent claims. I would say that's the first thing that's happening. And the process of that is obviously going through an attorney. Not all of them, of course, are bad, but there are some attorneys that collect a lot of fees from the carriers and from your pocket. Therefore, the claims that are being paid out are being extremely high. On top of that, of course, not everybody uses the money for what they should use the money, to repair their home and stuff. So the insurance carriers, past a certain point, start analyzing their budget and they start looking at their finances. And there are carriers that reinsure them. So when they get to a certain point that they don't have enough money to pay out the claims and they're still insuring a lot of people, they say, hey, we have too many people, we have to slow down. So the first thing they do is they shut down their doors. And typically you'll see that for a period of a year for new clients. After that point, they try to reassess their books. And if they still have too many people filing claims and too much money is going out the pipe, they decide to start canceling people in order to limit their book and try to keep enough money to keep their financial rating in place. So that's where people start getting their policies canceled and they kind of have to start running around. If they lose their financial rating by a carrier called Demotech, who rates all the carriers here in Florida, then the mortgage companies can't use that carrier anymore. So let's say you're insured with X, Y, or Z company. They went from an A carrier to an F company, and all of a sudden your mortgage company says, hey, you can't be insured with them anymore, so figure it out. And they start scrambling around, us as clients, and end up typically with one or two companies taking in everybody, which is kind of what's going on now.
So basically it's like you have the homeowners insurance companies acting in self-preservation because they're basically getting sued too much and becoming not financially healthy.
Right, exactly. The worst thing that could possibly happen is you pay $5,000 a year for insurance, and then your insurance company says, okay, well, I don't have any money to pay your $40,000 claim, so figure it out. And in order to try to limit that, they try to limit their book.
Awesome, thank you for that. Next question. So when should somebody who's planning on buying a home speak with an insurance agent and find out what they should expect in terms of prices and process dealing with you guys?
So that varies, honestly, on the agent. I am pretty much available, as you know. So I really say anytime you have a client that's serious on a home, reach out to me so I can give you a general idea. I won't be able to give you an accurate quote until the inspections are completed, but I can give you a ballpark, especially if your debt to income is kind of tight. I say reach out to me from the beginning so we can all be on the same page when it comes to that.
Awesome. What's the difference between an HO3 and an HO6 policy, and how would you know which one you need?
So the best way to figure that out would be to really just look at your property. So if you have a single family home, you don't share a roof with anybody. All the walls belong to you. That's a single, HO3 policy. You're responsible for everything, the exterior, the interior of the property. If you live in a townhome, a condo, it completely changes. Typically condos are HO6, which means that the roof is not your responsibility. You're responsible from the drywall into the property. And the HOA covers the roof. With townhomes, it varies. For example, where I live, I actually, even though I have a townhome that connects, they don't cover my roof, so I'm responsible for that. The best way to handle it would be to reach out to the HOA company, have them send you a copy of the master insurance, and I can take a look at it. You can ask them, but typically I'll review it and make sure that you have the right policy.
So condos, definitely the HO6. Single family home, definitely HO3. Townhouses, it depends. So we'll have to ask Jenny.
Yeah, exactly. Reach out to me.
Okay. Another question. I talk to a lot of agents who mention bad things about Citizens. They don't like writing Citizens policies. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, so I write citizens policies. I think every agent here in Florida at this point is writing citizens policy. It's not that we don't like Citizens. Obviously, they belong to the state of Florida. It's just that they are the company of last resource. Citizens came around at a time where there weren't any insurance companies here in Florida, so they're not normally the company that you would go for. Because of that, they're typically, last time I checked, which was a few months ago, they were insuring about 30,000 people a month, which kind of leads you to think if there's a claim, a catastrophe, we're all going to struggle a little bit if we're insured with Citizens. So if there's another option, we'll take that route just for the sake of the client. You want your claim to be handled as soon as possible. But with the market the way it is right now and carriers canceling, a lot of people are with Citizens.
Cool. Next question, what is flood insurance? We've seen a lot of people talking about flood insurance the past few weeks after Hurricane Ian. I come across it very occasionally, depending on if the property is in a flood zone, but I'm not super familiar with that, and I know a lot of people want to hear more about flood insurance.
Yeah, so flood insurance is water coming from the outside in. That is kind of the easiest way to describe it, I should say. So obviously with a homeowner's policy, you would think, okay, I have wind coverage. If a storm comes my way and, the water floods, I'm covered. Well, you're not. You're only covered if there's a leak in the roof, so forth and so on. So with flood insurance, if the water comes from the outside in, that's where you are protected. What happened on the West Coast is a great example of that. I actually went to help out on the West Coast when everything happened, and there were a lot of people that had water up to 5 feet on their wall.
Wow.
And they didn't have flood insurance. So they were kind of left to fend by themselves or waited out, till a government program comes around. With flood insurance, that would pay for you to be able to get out of the property, rent an Airbnb, hotel, whatever you need to do. It would cover your costs while you're doing that, and it would help to fix your home for the time being. Something interesting about that, there's two different types of flood insurance. There's private flood insurance, and there is the one by FEMA. So everybody, a lot of people on the West Coast, they didn't have flood insurance because it was expensive, but the private flood, typically it is much cheaper. The one I have is $400 for the year. So it's always good to check that out, especially if you're paying $35, $36 a month.
Yeah. So like $400 a year, is that like what you have specifically for yourself, or is that what you would expect like a lot of people to find?
That is what I have for myself, as long as you're not in a high risk flood zone. All of Florida is kind of a flood zone. We get a lot of rainfall and everything floods around here, but there are areas that are deemed higher risk. So as long as you're not in a high risk, there is a carrier that I can think of the top of my head. Their average rate is $375. Obviously, I would have to run the quote specifically, but typically as long as you're not, again, in a high risk, it's not too pricey at all.
So it's cheaper if you're not in a high risk zone, but really can vary quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Next, how can somebody switch policies after they've already closed on their home? So a lot of times in like the mortgage real estate transaction process, we get a policy for somebody at closing, and then maybe a few months later, we hear the policy got dropped. And then since we help that person get their homeowner's insurance policy, they're a little bit lost on what to do, or maybe they just want to shop around and try to find a better deal because they saw the policy renew and the price is a lot higher. So what does that process look like, and how does somebody go about that?
It's actually very simple. I mean, obviously, if they already bought the home, they have their inspections in place. Inspections, depending, some of them are good for 5 years, some of them are good for a year. But we can always take a look at the inspections, your current policy. So your declaration page is a great example. And review that, and I can point you in the right direction. Hey, you should have this coverage. As you know, many times when you're first buying a home, you're a little bit more limited on the budget that you have, but maybe a year down the line when you completely redid the home and refurnished, you want to purchase more coverage. So it's always good to review that. It's very, very simple process as long as you have those three things: wind mit, 4-point, and your deck page.
Okay, so would somebody have to pay for that policy out of pocket a year again, or could they ask their mortgage servicer to pay the initial premium for the year?
No, I would help with that. So I would be the one to bill your mortgage service. for the new policy, and I would assist you canceling the prior one. As long as you have an escrow in place, that is what we will continue to follow.
Okay, awesome. And lastly, what is the best way for somebody to reach out to you for any questions or insurance quotes?
My phone, that's the best way. My phone number, my direct number is 772-841-3341. They can call me, text me. I'm really available. Like I said, it's my business, so I'm available all the time.
Yeah.
Since I'm always home,
I get it.
So that would definitely be the best way.
Okay, and we'll put Jenny's contact information and probably have this shared so it comes from both of our Instagram pages. So,
All right.
awesome. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.